Okay, what we're going to do in this screencast is go through the time class. So I have this starter program here. And the first thing I'm going to do is define the class itself. And remember that classes are divided into public sections and private sections. I usually put my private section on the bottom and then define it and then fill in the methods, but you can actually interchange these. So as you know, the time class has two private data members, hours and minutes. And now I can start filling in the public interface or the public methods. First of all, I need a default constructor. And I don't normally write the names out here, but I'll just write them out here for the purposes of this lecture. I also need an explicit constructor. And for us, the explicit constructor will take the arguments that correspond to the private data members. Then I need my get methods, and these will let us get the individual private data members from a time object. Whoops. And I have one of these for each private data member. Then I need my set methods. Again, I'm going to have one of these for each private data member. And it takes the same type as the argument. And now I'm going to have my various input and output methods. As we know, we have a print method, I have an enter method, I have a read method. The read method is going to take some iStream as an argument. And the write method is going to take some OStream as an argument. And this lets us read and write time objects to any input stream and any output stream. And if you remembered, I also have a definition for an add method. So here's my basic definition. So I can actually compile this. I mean, I encourage you to type a little, compile a little, type a little, compile a little. It'll really help you manage the errors if you do that. So now in terms of implementing the methods, we can start off implementing the constructor. Remember what we do here is now that we're implementing the methods, we give the class name, the scoping operator, and then the name of the method. And this is going to be the implementation of the default constructor. Now with the default constructor, we want to assign hours and minutes to 0. So I can just make those assignments. Just like that. Now for the explicit constructor, again, in fact, just to kind of hit this home, you know, effectively what you're doing here is you're taking the definition from the class construct, just like this. Let me get rid of that. And essentially what you're doing is you're removing the semicolon and you're replacing it with a compound statement or a body. And then you're adding the class and the scoping operator. So what we want the explicit constructor to do is we want to set the private data member hours with the parameter new hours. We want to set the private data member minutes with the parameter new minutes. So we just make those assignments Let me just, I'm going to give this a quick compile, make sure I don't have any syntax errors. And at this point, I'm going to go ahead and implement my print method. This is going to give me an opportunity to test what I've done thus far. And remember, this is just going to print hours, and then it is going to print the colon. I guess I use the character, and then we're going to print minutes. Compile that, make sure it's correct. So now in main, I can actually play around with my time class. So all this is going to do is it's going to create a default constructed object and call the print method. I should see 0:0 if I've done this correctly. And that's exactly what I see. So far, so good. So now let's implement, can go ahead and implement our get methods, which are going to return an integer. And all this does is this returns the private data member it corresponds to. So in this case, get hours is going to return the private data member hours. Same thing for get minutes. Compile that, still good. So now I can play around with these. So maybe instead of doing a default constructed time object, I'll do an explicitly constructed object, and now I can see out time.get hours. And this strategy of testing as you go along is a good one to get into the habit of. So now let's compile this. And so what, again, let's go back. I mean, what should this print if everything is working correctly? What should be the output of this program? So I'm storing 4 and 20 in my time object. I'm printing it, so I should see 4:20. Then get hours should print 4, and then get minutes should print 20. And that's exactly what I see. So now let's look at let's implement our set methods. Now in terms of order, you know, some people order them in certain ways. You can order them alphabetically. Maybe the constructors appear at the top, and then you order alphabetically. Maybe you order in terms of, you know, private data member category. It's really up to you. Some software systems will order them for you, development systems. So maybe we'll do alphabetical order here. So the purpose of my set method is to let programmers change each of the private data members. So the new value is going to be passed in as a parameter. And so what I want to do is simply set that parameter to the private data member. I'm going to do exactly the same thing for the minutes private data member. And so now I want to test this. Maybe I'll do a change right here. So again, I should see 4:20 here, then I should see 16 printed, and then 35 printed. And that's what I see. Very nice. Whoa, well, that's not what I saw. Ah, I see what I did wrong. Did you catch that? I called set hours twice. So now I should see 16 and 35. There we go. All right. Let's do my enter method. I guess I really didn't. So what I want to do here for my enter method is I want to let people read a time or enter a time in from the keyboard, and they're going to enter them in. I'm going to read from the standard the console input, and I should have hours followed by the colon, which I'm going to read into character, followed by minutes. And then my read method, that's going to take an input stream, and I'm going to read two integers from the input stream, no colon in between. Remember, this is the difference between our internal and external format. That's that. And finally, my write method is going to write to an output stream. Again, this is going to write the internal format, which is simply going to be hours. And this time I do have to add a space when I'm writing, otherwise they won't be separated when I try to read them back in. In this case, space is the delimiter instead of the colon. Let's give this a quick compile. Uh-oh. So look what it says here. So now it's saying in my write method, hours was not declared in the scope and minutes was not declared in the scope. So I'm guessing that what I did is I forgot to use the scoping operator when I implemented write. So let's see if I'm correct. Yeah. So notice that this method has the scoping operator. Here I do not have the scoping operator. So C++ is interpreting this as a function, not as a method of the time class. And as a consequence, since these are defined in the time class, they can only be defined within the scope of this time class. So now this should compile. Okay. Maybe we'll test our enter method. Let's copy this down here. And so now we'll run this and we should see the output, and now it's waiting for me to type something in, and I'll type in 1315 and then we should just see that value back. So that's the implementation of our simple. I got a little sloppy here with our comments. So this is the implementation, the simple implementation of our time class. And now what I'll do is I'll go back through some of the changes that we made to it.